And we are live. Sound
Sound
mind.
minds. Let's get it. Sunday the 20th. You know what I mean? The week of, we getting close to this Christmas festivities and all that, whether you celebrate or not. We here, we close. We got a dope episode today, man. We have a guest that's on his way as well. D Black is on his way, but we have two phenomenal men that I know that have been working with the youth for many a years and have also been, for the most part, integrating spoken word, hip hop, and just the word itself. So this particular episode right here is called Youth and the Word, and we're gonna get into a whole bunch of stuff, and we're gonna introduce them. You're gonna find out what they're doing on the personal level, and as well as find out what everybody kind of has in common. I think that this is a dope episode based off of the buildup of every guest that we've been bringing on. For the most part, we've noticed that everybody that we have been bringing on has been very community oriented or very much youth oriented. So it's only right that we have this episode right here. So with
Yeah,
that being said,
I wanna also before you even say that, I wanna also give a early winter solstice shout out. You know what I'm saying? We got a great conjunction happening, in the universe right now where, the planets are aligning. Right now, we're gonna have Jupiter and Saturn. That's called a great conjunction. You know what I mean? It's gonna be bringing in some a reset type of energy, man. I want everybody to set their mind right. Make sure you set your goals. You know what I mean? Make sure you plan for the future and look to manifest those great things and overcome some obstacles that's maybe holding you back. All of that. Set your intentions right, especially tonight and throughout this winter solstice right now. These next 3 days is very important. So definitely tap into the energies that the universe is sending, and keep that third eye open, family.
let's go. With that being said, two great guests. The first is my brother Joseph Vasquez. Met him through work that I've done with the youth. He's going to get to speak and give his introduction. And then my man JC Hall, who also I met him through work with the youth in regards to a hip hop class that I was doing with some of our young in the school that we worked together in the Bronx. So, brothers, the stage is yours. We have D Black coming in a little bit. If you can, man, let's just jump into your introductions and tell the people who you are.
Welcome to Sound Minds, family.
What's up, y'all? What's up? What's going on? So I'm Joseph Vasquez, born and raised in the Bronx, now living in Florida. I'm a juvenile probation officer. Been working in youth development for close to 15 years now. Work 8 years in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. Now working in Central Florida, juvenile probation officer. Also a poet, spoken word artist. I've been writing since as far as I can remember.
Yeah, there we go.
Honored to be here, though.
And with that being said, we're definitely gonna get into a piece, that you put together. Make sure you shout out your YouTube channel, where they can find this piece, and also your IG where they can find your pieces and your work also. But check out this introduction to this brother Joseph Vasquez. Let's go.
Here in this pandemic where the world has stopped, the world has changed, but much of it is still the same. There's still hatred and ignorance being practiced as if being taught and cultivated in Zoom sessions. The privileged whine of being inconvenienced, they hold rallies with guns for haircuts. They cry aloud with fists clenched from their burden of injustice, for being arrested for going to the gym, while Jim turns a blind eye to the black man beaten. A black mother and child are arrested and slammed to the ground for being wrongfully accused of stealing a TV. Flip, the clear evidence mounts. Flip, video after video. Flip as the country's racism yells, ha ha, look at me. But Jim's mad for getting arrested at the gym. But Jim was never mad for forgetting his black neighbor's plight, because then he would have to see his own sin, see his own sin, see and no sin, see and own sin. It's beyond minimizing and dismissing transgressions of the past. Slavery is over, Jim says. Get over it. While Jim, Flip, from the channel that shows the black man shot while jogging. Flip, a young man slammed against the wall while being punched repeatedly in the face by police. Flip, he arrives at Fox News and feels comfortable and safe and blankets himself in his hate. Sorry, not hate. It's just a safe space. He's been social distancing from people of color for years. For years, he wore masks to protect himself against germs of a people he viewed as pandemic. The mask even filtered his prejudice with appropriate words to constructively express his displeasure. Until he rediscovered his freedom and liberties, a constitutional right for his expression he found under this administration. Now, Jim blogs, Jim tweets, Jim cries, Jim crows 3 times a week, proclaiming the inconvenience of his people while denying the true pandemic plaguing this country.
Whoa. We just opened up the floodgates early.
Powerful.
Man, hit that like button, man. If you enjoy what you just heard, make sure you hit that like button. Go check out our brother. You know what I'm saying? This right here was powerful, and I got so many questions, but we ain't gonna get into those questions yet. I got so many questions off of that right there, man, because you definitely hit a lot of points, and you definitely were, some discussions that need to be had within what you just brought up. You know what I'm saying? So, man. Our brother JC Hall.
What's up?
We're gonna get into your piece.
Dope.
And this is a trailer, you said, right?
Yeah, it's a trailer to this new doc in the works called Haven in the Booth. And just for a quick intro, my name is JC Hall. I'm a hip hop artist and a therapist. I'm a social worker at a high school in the South Bronx, where I run a hip hop therapy studio program. I'm just excited to be here. Appreciate y'all listening, and look forward to
therapy consisting of. Can you break that down for us?
For sure. So I studied under my mentor, Dr. Edgar Tyson, right? He passed a couple years ago, RIP. He first coined the term back in the 90s. And so it's basically talking about incorporating hip hop culture and the inherently healing elements within it, right? Built within the expressive arts itself, right? The movement, the rhythm, the words, and incorporating that into a clinical setting, trying to meet at the intersection between mental health, mental wellness, and hip hop, and to incorporate that in a culturally competent manner. Because traditionally speaking, therapy has had a very Eurocentric framework. Kind of just following his lead. And I mean, I always knew as an artist, hip hop was therapeutic, saved my life. Long before I ever got into therapy myself. Therapy also saved my life, so I can speak highly about both of those two, but the merging of the two, I think, is particularly unique because, when I was first going through therapy, I didn't really feel seen or heard by people because they were like, what is this hip hop stuff? Like just trying to create a space where those two can coexist and create opportunities for individuals to grow and to heal.
Wow. Powerful, brother.
Real quick question, JC, before we go into the introduction. If you can, speak to us about how long you've been an artist, and 2, how long you've been working with the youth and doing what you're doing in regards to your profession as well.
No, for sure. It's a good question, man. I've been working in the hip hop therapy field for a decade now. I first found out about it in 2010. That's when I first stumbled upon my mentor's research. And my artistry, though, has been going on since I was 14, 15, so 17, 18 years. And I when I first was going through a lot of my mental health struggles, that's actually when I first was drawn most to the pen, right? Or drawn most to the mic. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think I found an outlet in that when I most needed it. You know what I mean? And so it was a way for me to really take all these thoughts and this crazy stuff bouncing around in my head that I couldn't express to anybody and put it in a language that resonated with me and my peers, right? And it was a way to kind of not just work through my own stuff, but connect with others and feel embedded within a community. And, hip hop's extremely community oriented and relational.
Wow, man. Appreciate that answer, brother. That right there was great.
Thank you.
We already definitely diving deep. I mean, you guys' backgrounds are speaking for itself. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to, you can see it. You can see it already, and that's why this conversation tonight is going to be a great conversation. Make sure everybody stay tuned and hit that like button. Let's get into this trailer and see what our brother is cooking up.
Yeah. I swear I'm so misunderstood. I gotta make it out the hood. If I could take you back, I would, man. I really wish I could. It's hard for me to tell somebody how I really feel. When I'm on that booth, I just let everything go. Just an orange, I feel like I'm a prisoner.
Hey, good shit. Yeah, good shit.
That was tough.
Yeah, bro.
I was just mad, bro. Like, mad at life. If I'm out here, I'm gonna get caught into something, falling into the trap of gangbanging. It's easy to do it in this environment.
For a lot of the kids, being vulnerable will get you killed. I have a lot of past mistakes to make up for, so it doesn't feel like, oh, here I am doing some amazing shit. It's like, you've put people you really cared about through hell. This is just what you're supposed to do.
Most of my songs is always some type of message that goes towards him. There's always some type of message that's saying, oh, like, I'm not forgetting you, bro. Like, we really took a loss.
Yeah.
Really, man. He was gonna be something.
There's something inherent within hip hop that is extremely healing.
Being in the studio all the time gives me a relief feeling. It's like a safe haven.
There's a lot of kids out here who don't have any fucking help. They got nobody rooting for them. It's like, what do you think happens to those kids?
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Make sure y'all go support. Gotta watch this, share this. This is something that's crazy. That's gonna be crazy.
Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, for the most part, this is a sequel to what there was a documentary already shot about what you've been doing in regards to, or done about what you've been doing in the My Haven section in the Bronx with the youth. And what's the name of that, and where would they be able to find that? If you don't, let's just get that right out the way too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate you bringing that up. Yeah, I would definitely encourage everyone to check out Mod Haven. It was a documentary shot by my buddy Kyle Morrison, directed it. It covers the origins of the program, right? So when you watch that and now see this footage, you can see the evolution, how we moved from kind of like a little corner office to now this huge space where we're able to accommodate more youth. But yeah, I would definitely encourage you all to check that out. It's on Vimeo. If you just type in Mott Haven, MOTT Haven.
Mott Haven.
Fire. So we here. We about to get into this discussion. So D Black, David Roberts is on his way. He's having some technical difficulties, but nonetheless, let's start the conversations, my brothers. I mean, for the most part, two dope men, role models in many, and even though we at times, because of our bashfulness or our modesty, right? For the most part, a lot of times our humbleness does not allow us to get into the category of saying, I am a role model. And I'm gonna tell y'all straight off the bat before we even get into the discussion, both of you brothers are definitely role models for the youth that you're working with, male and female. So a lot of times, I can speak from experience when I know that when we work with the youth, a lot of times it's like a lot of our youth don't have male role models or male father figures or anybody to kind of turn to. So here it is, you're tapping into talents, and you're tapping into things that they may not even know within themselves that they have. So let's talk about that. How do you feel about that, taking on that responsibility, and not only that, but having that title connected to you as being a role model?
That's a deep and heavy question there. I mean, it's something that I feel it's a it's a burden, but it's a burden that I carry willingly and passionately and wholeheartedly. It's so important to be able to like have any kind of influence on young people and the next generation coming up is so important. And I only have that because there was those who were before me who poured into my life and saw something in me and was able to identify a leadership skill in me or whatever have you, and call it out and and show me the importance of giving back, showing the importance of investing in the community, investing in young people, especially people of color, Latinos, Black people, people who grew up where I grew up. You know what I mean? So like, it's so important to me, and it's something that I know it's part of my purpose in life. So
powerful.
That's a great answer. Yeah, being a role model. I don't know. I guess I've never really looked at it like that, right? There's definitely a certain level of modeling that occurs in the therapeutic relationship in terms of trying to model vulnerability and openness and showing that it's okay, and to create that kind of trusting relationship. For me, I honestly just feel it feels like a responsibility more than anything. It's just what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? It's just hip hop culture growing up was a life vest for me, so it's just poetic justice that I ended up in the Bronx, in the birthplace, trying to provide spaces for youth to do what I was doing or trying to do, trying to heal myself through the music and through the arts. So yeah, it's an honor and a privilege, man. And I just try to live up to I just try to be the best person I can be, man, and just keep trying to pay it forward, because there were a lot of people out there who did that for me and I didn't earn it. I definitely didn't deserve it, so I'm just trying to continue to pay things forward, and that's hip hop, man. Each one teach one.
Let's go.
Dope. Let me ask y'all a question. You primarily, and let's give it up, and we kind of all work together in this one organization, and the understanding of where you guys. I am from the Lower East Side, born and raised. Worked in the South Bronx. Worked in the South Bronx with you two gentlemen. D Black, welcome, brother.
What up, yo? sorry.
Peace, brother. Nah, don't worry about it. We're gonna get into you in a second too, brother.
Cool.
So for the most part, working in the South Bronx, right? One of the poorest districts in the country, you know what I'm saying, let alone the state. You are dealing with youth, or you have dealt with youth that for the most part have come in and, for all respect and intents and purposes of the word, have come in broken, have had broken houses, broken situations. They themselves, their spirits are broken. And here it is. They are by nature, because I know when I was young, that was kind of like I had a great mother and father, but where I came from was broken. My neighborhood, Rutgers community, was broken from the Lower East Side. You know what I'm saying? But nonetheless, when you get to meet people that you feel are genuine and are really giving that love, and it's the three of you brothers as well, you know what I'm saying, that they get to meet you on, they're like, damn, I'm reluctant. I don't trust nobody. You know what I'm saying? How do you kind of manifest that trust in your relationship with those that don't want to trust nobody? Because truth of the matter is, everybody they probably trusted never really did them justice.
Do we have an order of how we're speaking, or what's happening?
You know what? Before we even get into that question, great question. Before we get into that, let's introduce my man D Black, man. Let's introduce David Roberts. Yeah. Let's do that straight off the bat. My brother. So D Black is, when you speak about wordsmiths, man, this dude is just ill. You know what I'm saying? He's so sick with his, and then on top of that, multi-talented. Like I've said on the live sometime this week when I made it, Netflix shows, Hulu shows, and we're not getting paid by none of those major networks. You know what I mean? No promo, but we promoting my brother. Yeah, we got to promote my brother. We got to promote him because truth of the matter is that he, very much like us, came from the same neighborhoods and made it out with his talent. And if you can, brother, give us an introduction of who you are, man, what you've been doing, the work that you've done with not only your profession as an actor and a spoken word artist, but as well as stuff that you've done with the youth as well.
Okay. Let me make it real as quick as possible. My apologies, brothers, for my lateness. I completely forgot StreamYard doesn't do well with phones, so I had to come to the laptop. Let me see. Been acting and doing spoken word for a number of years now. I've also done a lot of teaching artist stuff. So I've been in the school system for a number of years as well. A lot of the things that I write talk about Black unity, Afrocentricity, psychological, from a psychological sense, also with that urban sense of flavor. I mean, pretty much that's it without wasting much time. A couple of TV shows here, a couple of plays here and there. But I really wanted to stick with what was just asked. For me, what I've done is you'll be surprised how much you being the example will actually gravitate the youth towards you. And sometimes that's the best introduction. Sometimes, the old school, hand on the shoulder, mentorship, trying to help out. Sometimes that does work. But as was already stated, the youth, and this is something that's been, handed down from generation to generation, already understands that there's a trust issue. So they're not really, we know games, we know BS. We're urban youth who are now urban men ourselves, so we understand BS. If anybody understands BS, it's people from urban America. So we know BS when we smell it and see it. So when they see truth and when they see integrity and they see an individual that they themselves emulate and someone whose footsteps they possibly want to walk in and get advice from, believe it or not, just you being the person that you are and you walking in your light and having that integrity, that will gravitate them towards you.
My brother, powerful. Can we get into a piece? SoundMinds to that. Can we get into his piece? Yeah, we also have some of your work pulled up from your YouTube channel. Shout out your YouTube channel, by the way.
I haven't seen that DVD in eons. Thank you so much for being a supporter. Oh my God.
That Poe got the DVD. He gonna get into that right after we actually see what the work our brother actually got out there. Check this out.
David Roberts.
This is David Roberts, the David Roberts. Yes, oh my gosh. Yes. May I have your autograph?
Now. Okay.
So David, what are you doing here at the ABFF?
Well, I'm an actor and a spoken word artist, and I'm promoting my DVD entitled The Black Experience.
Wonderful. I want just a little excerpt of some of your spoken word. I love spoken word. Talk to me.
Not a problem. I apologize. I apologize for being a rapper that flooded your airwaves with songs that deprave your kids' minds, making them mental slaves. I apologize for writing rhymes about crimes never committed, selling drugs, busting guns, prisons never been in. I apologize for promoting companies lacking respect for me, stretching out their demographics, increasing their currency. I apologize for demeaning women when some of y'all don't deserve it, prostituting y'all on wax as a means of making profit. I apologize for exploiting my hood when I should be explaining it, using it as a stepping stone when I should be saving it. I apologize for giving the N-word heavy rotation. Instead of lifting the minds of the masses, I'm satisfying investors. But see, I got this A&R saying if I don't write songs like these, he ain't gonna sign me. And y'all black folks is bootlegging and downloading, so what you gonna boycott, spare me? And plus, I got seeds to feed, and y'all ain't buying enough copies. But these white kids get a kick out of black negativity. So I Sambo on tracks manifesting buffoonery. Because these black companies can't offer what these white ones is paying me. So for an MTV crib and a chance of luxury, I close my third eye and compromise my dignity. Like y'all females dancing to my number one hit songs of misogyny. Rhythmic masochists, gyrating to degradation, souls missing something like single parent housing. Now you know why today's black youth is unbalanced. Say hello to our future gang members or corner drug dealers. Listening to me, Mike Jones, and Jim Jones trying to figure out who's a better father figure. And our streets is ruptured. Black leaders crossed over, selling out our structures to development vipers. And our black doctors and lawyers moved out to greener pastures. No more role models, they left out with the Cosby season, making us fans and victims of these misguided elders, spewing the word nigger with lousy explanations. Y'all are taking us backwards, Ving Rhames, Pulp Fiction, but you call me blaxploitation. I'm just a sound on a radio station that y'all keep demanding, so whose fault really is this? I'm from that part of America where genocide thrives as my neighbor. Asbestos when I wake up, hearing sirens when I slumber. But now I'm a Stepford wife, stepping in fetching for my masters, strings pulled by my backers. But regardless of these factors, I'm the one in control of my actions. And I should still know better. So, I apologize. D Black.
SoundMinds.
SoundMinds. D Black is in the building.
Wow.
My brother. So, best word I could describe for that is straight disgusting. You done touched so many souls and spirits, and you done did so much that most, when they hear it, wouldn't even understand what they're doing. Because the truth of the matter is that the dopest thing about that is you said I apologize, right? But still spoke about how it's still going on. So in a sense, it's like hopefully the apology is enough for you to look past the wrongdoing of which I'm doing. But I do apologize, though. Shout out to you, brother. SoundMinds for that, man. So now that the conversation is going to get real heavy. So as I was asking the two other guests, my brother, how do you feel? How do you feel with the attachment of the word role model put into you due to the fact that many a times when our youth come to us, they don't have an attachment to anybody else. So it's just kind of like, here it is. You are the one person that they trust when they get to trust you, right? Mm-hmm. But then the responsibilities that kind of go with it. So in fairness of the two guests, Joe Vasquez and JC Hall, who answered the question, how do you feel about that? Like just knowing that responsibility, brother.
I mean, it used to be a big thing. I mean, it still is. Don't be wrong. But I think another thing that's happened is that we also have to remember that times have changed. Being a role model in, let's say, the 80s, maybe even the 90s, is a little bit different than being a role model from the 2000s up until today. And two of the biggest reasons that I'm always talking about is social media and reality TV. Reality TV, we all know, is not real. It's scripted segments of reality, of which an arc has to be played before they hit the commercials. We all know that. But the thing is, we're definitely expecting a fight. We're expecting some type of drama. We're expecting some type of conflict because that's how the shows are run. We're going to put these people in a house. We're going to put these people in a situation, and there has to be some type of conflict. We're going to go to our sponsors who paid for certain ads to be paid within the hype of all of this conflict, and then that's how we're going to keep on running money. When you look at social media, everybody has a voice. Even the person who's not that accredited or credible has a voice on social media. Everybody gets a chance to speak. So the thing that may not be valid can be valid because there's more than enough people that believe in it. So I'm saying all that to say that being a role model today holds a different weight. It still is important. Being a mentor is still important, but I think specifically the youth understand that with being a role model, there's a certain level of just being a human being and an imperfection that comes with that. Back in the days, our role models, at least for me, when I saw someone who was a role model, I understood that, oh, this person was like on the level of messiahship. You know, they never did anything wrong. That's part of the reason why the whole, the whole Bill Cosby stuff, kind of just hit us like really hard. Now, the people who are behind the velvet rope, they knew the deal. But the rest of us, that's Mr. Huxtable. Mr. Huxtable wouldn't do that. That's, no way. So for us, we lines were blurred more when it came to the human being of a role model as opposed to the role model themselves. Now we understand that, okay, yeah, so and so is a role model, but so and so is doing some dirt, or so and so has a level of imperfection that that we can either get with, or we just have to find out. And once we find out, then we're going to make the decision, okay, are we still going to get with you or rock with you, depending on what those imperfections are.
I love that answer. That was even a more that was an answer that I just was not even expecting. That's what I want to say. I didn't expect, that perspective, what I mean? And you bring a great perspective to the role model thing, because we've had those experiences of looking up to someone as a role model, but then later finding out that dirt, and then you have that, oh, this person is not as good as I thought they were.
Right.
Right. That it feels like it was a letdown. And your generation, my generation went through it to now pass down to the other generation to be like, no, everybody doing dirt. Like,
right.
Like everybody doing, it just everybody has a balance in life, in a sense. I mean? Not, I wouldn't even say dirt, to be all the way negative, but it's things that may be looked at as negative, is always around.
Yeah, human flaws.
Human flaws.
And that was a beautiful way of saying it. Like the way the media used to portray people, as we've gotten further from just a completely blatantly white supremacist. I mean, people forget slavery was legal. It was the law. Not being a slave was illegal. Running away from being a slave was illegal. Jim Crow, right? So like D Black was saying earlier, like urban people, black folk dealing with this, we've always been able to sense a BS in the air, but it was kind of this weird relationship of, even though I know these role models aren't perfect, I know they have the power to present themselves and make people believe they're perfect, and I do not have that power. I could go outside right now and just look suspicious and end up in a predicament, right? So it's funny how what y'all saying right now, I think ties back into some of the youth work that y'all have been doing, because it's making me realize that a lot of our people of color, they could only get so much from white role models, even if they wanted to, because they knew this person has a magical power that I don't have, which is to be human and flawed, but to walk around like they're not. And no matter what I do, they can feel sorry for me because of my body and where I'm from. So I'd like to go into the next question about that. It's just naturally dovetailing into the next question about some of the social work. Everybody here works in schools, works with youth, as well as being phenomenal artists, which I want to talk about both. But going into the work you do in the schools and the community, you said to represent yourself is the best way to lead, right? Once they see like you as a real person, then they start to connect to you. How can you explain that? And I'm sorry to take this away from you for a second, but how can you explain that to maybe some of the white colleagues or some of just the more Black and Latino colleagues that have tried to be so not Black and Latino, or tried to be so not from where they are? How can you explain that in a way where it's like, you can be white, you can be whatever you want to do, but you have to do it in a way that lets the kid know there's things you can do right now that I will never be able to do, and I might be 10 years older than you. Right? How do we have these conversations with people where in the midst of white supremacy, we let people know it's okay to let the kid know they're better than you in some ways, and you're better than everybody in other ways? That doesn't seem like white supremacy hasn't lent itself to talking about that. It's like it threatens us, you know? How do we do that?
What I try to focus on mainly is our differences, you know, and the thing that makes me different is the thing that makes me unique. I encourage everyone to find out what their differences are. There are things that bond us. Yes, as human beings, you know, you have a heart. I got a heart. We all need oxygen. We all spent 9 months underwater, and then after the 9 months, we need the oxygen and can't live underwater, right? We all have our commonalities, but at the same time, there's ways that we speak. There's individual, history, individual, backgrounds, environment. There are things that make me unique, not only as the individual, but also culturally. There are things that are unique to the Bronx. There are things that are unique to New York City. There are things that are unique to America. So there are all these little splices and slashes that all make us what we are as individuals. I promote for everybody to find out what all your slashes are. Get all those hyphens in there. Find out every little, that's one of the reasons why these companies like Ancestry.com became so big, because it gave everybody a means to backtrack and say, okay, I stem from this root. I stem from here, as opposed to me just being here one generation off. Many generations off, and I have a specific location to go to, a bunch of different locations to all encompass and encapsulate the things that make me an individual. So I promote for everybody to promote that, and as long as we're on the same page as to what the destination is with all our differences, we should be fine. I don't think that everything's gonna be perfect, but at the same time, we all got 6 definitions of what perfect is. So let's hash that out. If we can all deal with what our source is and where we're coming from, and we can all lay down in front of us, okay, what's the destination of where we're going with all of the things that we have to bring to the table.
SoundMinds to that. You gotta, and SoundMinds to this. You must know where you come from in order to know where you're going. Thank you, Crystal.
So
something I wanted to touch on that. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, Joe.
Say it again.
I was gonna say, Joe JC.
Yeah, I wanted to
answer the question.
I kind of wanted to piggyback off of what David was saying earlier about when you're working with young people, right? Especially in urban settings, they could see right through BS, right? So when I'm talking to my colleagues or young professionals who've never worked in these settings, the urban settings, like I've had young professionals or from like Maine or different parts of the country, like, how am I supposed to reach these young people? I'm like, you just got to be genuine. You just got to be real and honest, right? Because the flip side of that, right? Like when I was a young professional, I was so quick to be like, well, I've been there, I've done that. You know what I mean? I'm from the South Bronx. I'm from and then kind of like just go off of that and thinking that I could reach these young people. But everyone is different, though. If I'm taking that and I'm like, yeah, I've been there and done that, now I'm making it about me, and the focus is off the young people. So, like, even that approach can be wrong as well. I mean, there's a time and place to share your story with these young people, but at the end of the day, it's about they're the focus and just being there, genuine, and then just being that support. That's what's gonna have more effect than anything that you could say, preach, do, or bring in theatrics or whatever. None of that's gonna work. Just be real and be genuine, because they're gonna see the facade, they're gonna see the show, they're gonna see the nonsense, and you're just gonna fall flat on your face. And it's the working with young people, especially in the cities, it's a high burnout rate. And no matter what you're doing, whether it's teaching, social work, working in law enforcement, whatever it is, it's a lot. So you just got to be genuine. And then to kind of also to say about knowing where you came from, right? And I feel like what my goal with young people is always to, the whole topic of this discussion, right, is the word and youth. When I think of word, I think of voice, helping these young people find their voice and and how they find that voice is knowing who they are within themselves, knowing who they are, from where they've come from. I remember even when I first started working with that organization in the Mount Haven section of the Bronx, and one of the first classes I did, I had them do an identity portfolio, and they basically had to do a family tree. And this was even before Ancestry, I believe. They had to do a family tree. They had to do a neighborhood map and find out, the history of their neighborhood. You live in these neighborhoods, especially like growing up in the Bronx, there's such rich history there, and like, for instance, even the work that I did, like in the Mount Haven section of the Bronx, I've read up on so much, a lot of things about the community, a lot of the horrible things that went on in that community, right? With the Bronx burning in the 60s and the 70s. And then also on a lot of the work that was done. And that made me feel empowered to do my job even more, because I feel like I was standing on the shoulders of people who went before me. And now I'm bringing the progress to a whole nother level. And it's just a beautiful and powerful thing. And sorry, I'm rambling on there, but yeah.
No, that he wasn't. JC.
No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer. I don't know how to piggyback off those. I think the main thing, though, authenticity. The one thing touched upon, authenticity, I would say, is key, because if the youth, they'll smell it on you, and rightfully so, and you'll get called out. And I think cultural humility is a huge piece as well, or maybe just humility in general, right? The idea of like the way I was raised, or the way I was brought up, or where I'm from, my cultural roots, those aren't automatically the one and only way things should be done, right? So understanding and just having a little bit of humility of like, man, I don't know what these kids are going through. I don't care if I grew up in the same area, like, at the end of the day, there's things separating me. For me personally, whether it's growing up in the suburbs, being a white dude, you know what I mean? But it could be, say I grew up in the hood, right? Like, at the end of the day, there's a generational gap, right? They're growing up on music and situations that I've never experienced, right? So a lot of times I'll work with white clinicians, right? And to speak with them about hip hop therapy and how to utilize hip hop in an authentic way, right? In engaging youth. And just trying to spread the word about it. And a lot of them are hesitant because they're like, I don't know anything about hip hop, and I don't want to be like, I don't want to be seen as trying to co-opt something. I don't want it to be inauthentic. And I'm like, listen, you don't need to know everything. Ask them. I come in and I know a lot about hip hop, but at the end of the day, I'm not 18 growing up I don't know all these new artists coming out. I don't know like all these dudes. So I need to constantly keep my ear to the street and ask the youth that I work with, put me on. Who's this new artist? Okay, I don't even understand what that dude just said. Can you tell me what he just said? Can you, you know what I mean? Like, can you explain to me okay, how do you identify with that? How do you relate with that? What in that phrase was, you know what I mean? So even if you're born and bred in hip hop culture, right, and that raised you, the culture isn't stagnant, right? It's continuously evolving. And as we all age and grow older or move on in our lives, like, we're going to have certain connections always, but certain disconnections. So a certain level of humility to where, even though I might like a particular type of hip hop, right? Or a particular artist, to not at the end of the day be like, that's the end all be all, like that's what I'm not there to dictate taste. I'm not there to tell kids, this is real hip hop. This isn't real hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really just there to speak through that, to meet on that cultural turf, to have conversations, you know what I mean? And to engage them in a therapeutic dialogue through that, and provide them the access and the ability, the space to create their own music in whatever vision that may be, you know what I mean? Whatever it may be that they want to do or say, that's their right, man. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yo, you are so right. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, JC just brought up, just reminded me of something, that sometimes it's hard for us to just come in and be authentic, because I think, I don't know what everybody else's experience has been, but sometimes it's taught to us to teach to them in a certain way, or it's taught to us to conduct the workshop in this sort of way, because, there's these group of, psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists who've all done their studies, and they believe that this is the way that you need to teach this, and this, and don't say this, make sure you say that, and then of course you have the whole legality thing. Or you can't use these words, you have to say these words, this is the better route. The school will get in trouble, the program will get in trouble. So all of these little things have all become red tape on how to be a role model sometimes, or sometimes just on how to conduct yourself, or just how to be authentic and honest, because there are guidelines and lawsuits and vernacular and stuff that you have to be worried about in order just to talk.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And navigating those social systems, I think, is really difficult, right? And it's kind of crucial to the work, kind of knowing where, and maybe that goes to the professional humility side, right? Like kind of understanding that, sure, these certain structures have been set in place, right? Like this is the educational model or therapeutic model that I've studied, and I've been told that this is the rule of the law. And being able to be like, nah, like I question that. And maybe let me try this, you know what I mean? Let me knock on this and try to, because a lot of these hierarchies are outdated, and it needs, it's like a building, like they need to be updated constantly. Change is ever present. And so, yeah, trying to come in and be humble, but also have some faith in yourself, right? And like, I think I know what's right. Like they're telling me not to play songs with curses. They're telling me, or whatever it may be. And then at the end of, being like, nah, you know what I mean? I'm going to play songs with curses. And if I'm going to pay consequences, then I'm going to pay consequences. And trying to navigate that, it's extremely difficult, right? Like you could lose your job over stuff like that. So, I mean, that's a very valid point and a very nuanced fight.
That ties back into what everyone was saying, and my brother Ra was highlighting. Like, it's not that there's like whether we're allowed to know that people are human like us now, right? And the degrees of acting like we don't know are starting to be more, the spectrum starting to spread out more. You can be like, nah, he's a human. We still have some of those hierarchies in place, So these collaborations between actual administrators, more open-minded administrators, getting those degrees, going through the years, paying the college loans. I love you. I salute you. Shout out to our sister Sori Bell, previous guest, teaching administrators over at John Jay how to get in there. And as well as the teachers paying their dues, being there for the youth, and as well as those who are doing the social work or the teaching artists who are coming in. It's really, all of those people together. That's more of a cipher than a hierarchy. And since the hierarchy is still paying the bills and getting the grants, it's important that we give a shout out to those teachers and admins who are there that go, we need some of y'all that don't play by these rules and going to come and be able to play curses for the kid that needs to hear curses and know that it's okay, that he's not going to jail and he's not the devil. He's not going to hell. It's important.
And that he comes in and he's able to teach how he knows how to teach, not according to your structure, your curriculum, like we know that we can come in and do it how we drew it up, we designed
because
it.
Those administrators know that, and without them, these artists and social workers wouldn't be in the school. And shout out to those social workers and artists that go in schools as well, because for those of you where it's not just about you performing in a school and doing a gig, but you're realizing these certain administrators that are trying to dismantle the hierarchy and make a healthy learning environment for our kids. Go figure, school being a healthy place, right? They know, right? We both know each other. In that sense, we're sisters and brothers. We're not a hierarchy. So, like you said, I don't know if it'll ever be perfect, but I think that we are all committed to working on it right now. And I just want to give gratitude, because what I'm hearing is that thing is happening right now in the midst of the hierarchy they're trying to impose.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe that's
I do. No. I do want to say I agree, and I want to also say our guests are more confirmation that it's happening around the world. You know what I'm saying? Not just in our small circles, you know, not just in our schools and our programs, you know, it's really happening around the world. We have a question in the chat that actually ties into this conversation, though. How has the lack of funding hurt you? Because you know what is, we got. What's up with that? Now we talking about hierarchy. Is it hierarchy in that? Let's talk about it.
Okay. So I was definitely more a teaching artist ways back when with the funding than I am now. Specifically meaning that there were 2 programs that I was working with that are literally gone. So that has definitely put a stake in the heart of being able to help in that way. However, there are some students that I've met who have gone on to be teaching artists themselves, or they went on to be program directors themselves. And they brought me in and they said, yo, D, I remember you. I need you to come in and run this program for a day or for 2 days. And if I get my own budget and if I get my own grant money, I remember what you did. I'm bringing you in here. So there's that. It really, me personally, when it comes to the arts, I'm always expecting someone to yank the cord sooner or later. That's just me. I'm sorry. I'm the cynical pessimist of the room. I'm just that guy. So I'm always preparing for the worst, but I do my best with the students that are there in front of me. Always give them your best, because that water on those seeds that you're nurturing are going to grow and blossom, and they're going to hopefully give back to the seeds that are behind them. So that's really the name of the game. Sometimes, the program will get cut. Sometimes certain organizations will go down and under, and you'll never hear from them again, or the people ever again. But there will also be cases where there are kids who remember you. There will be situations where there are program directors or moderators or directors who remember you, and they'll bring you.
There's the impact.
Yeah, and they'll bring you aboard for this other program. Or once again, in my situation, there was at least 2 or 3 students that went on to direct their own programs, and they did bring me in as a guest. There was one that brought me in for the whole summer. So I was there for like 2 months, 1 day a week, doing all this stuff from a kid that I was teaching. So, those are the things that you want. But I always go in when it comes to the teaching artists. I always go in thinking that, our days are numbered eventually.
Yeah.
As someone who worked in, nonprofit organizations for a nonprofit organization, I know I've been able to see how funding can hurt and the lack of funding can hurt. When I say funding can hurt, is when you do have the funding, especially with a nonprofit organization, whoever's funding you, they can have these requirements or certain things that they look for that you gotta meet, certain standards you gotta keep or whatever. And it can kind of put a lot of pressure on you to feel like, all right, you kind of lose sight. If you're not focused, you can lose sight of what the whole purpose of the organization or the mission, and reaching these young people is. And you're thinking about numbers, and you're thinking about, all these statistical and technical things that you have to abide by. And you kind of lose sight of, well, what are we here for? We're here for these young people to make a difference in their lives, right? Like when I first moved down here, I was working for an organization that, was, we taught work readiness to these young people. We helped them get jobs, similar to what I did up north as well. And then also we helped them to finish school. But we were required to get numbers in, though. We had to go out there. On top of doing the job in the facility, we had to go out into the community, recruit kids. We had to go to places where, for instance, if I'm going to a school, hey, you got any kids who are struggling and they need help, getting their GED? They're kind of looking at you funny, like, you're trying to steal my kids or whatever. And instead of thinking about, let's help this kid, they're thinking about their own numbers, and you're thinking about numbers. So it's like, this poor kid is being struggled with, and no one's really focused on, let's just help this kid. If the school is not a good place, let's get them into this program or whatever. So there was that struggle, of trying to get these kids in, recruiting them. And if you're not, meeting the numbers, then we could lose funding. So is the stress of that. And, we did wind up lose the funding because we weren't able to get enough, kids in. So we saw the struggle with that. Then there's the flip side of, if you're working in this field, no matter what you're doing, working with young people, working in social work, you're not getting paid enough, right? Us as workers, we're always working below what we deserve. A juvenile probation officer here in Florida, we don't really make that much, right? But we're out there in the front lines with these kids, trying to help them, not go down that path where they wind up in, DOC, or wind up in, in the adult system. We out there doing home visits, going into communities we don't even have, not even a taser, a gun, nothing. Not even a whistle. I'm like, can I get a whistle at least, or something to cry for help if I'm in trouble? Nothing. I don't get none of that. You know what I mean? So, there's that sense. But again, like, I don't do this for the money. I don't do it for the pay. I do it for the love and the passion. But it's sad to see, like, where you just see where the country puts their value in. They don't invest in schools. We don't invest in these young people. The country invests in prisons, over $100,000 to keep one person in prison, as opposed to, the 10 grand or less that they keep to keep one kid in school. You know what I mean? So the values is just twisted.
What is that? Yo, what is... Mic check, mic check, mic check. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We back at it. We back at it. SoundMinds to that, man. That was a powerful, powerful answer. Did you want to finish? You good? Yeah, my bad. My bad for the interruption. So suffice. You need to say my bad.
Well, I'm muted now. I thought I was muted.
You need to say my bad. JC, if you could expound on that, and then I got a question as well.
I just want to affirm that we hear you. The funding is already below standard. It's already like a unspoken agreement that you deserve less, and that this is thankless work. And I just want to say, hell no. This is important work. I just want to say that. I want to say, like, we want you to get paid. You deserve to get paid. And the fact that funding is always going to be an issue and have to be fought around anyway, we at least need to let these people know that anyone that takes the time to care for our youth, if you're not doing a job with this demographic or this school or this city, then you need to at least not get in the way of people getting funding to take care of those kids that you're not taking care of. I just need to say that.
I wanted to also, I have to piggyback on that. And this is not a plug, I swear. But recently I was working with my girlfriend. She works, she has her own school. It's called Dare to Dream. And I'm saying that to tie back in. If the funds are cut, you can do it yourself. If there's anything that we should have already learned, but this is just being reinforced from this pandemic, we don't need the brick and mortar anymore. And I think a lot of people are, coming to that understanding. The people that were sitting on their butts thinking that, I can't do such and such, or, I spent so much time, I never got a chance to do such and such. They're doing it now because our backs are against the wall. There's nowhere else to go. This is it. Right now, this virtual world is as great as it's been for a lot of people for the past, what is this now, 10 months? So we've had not too many other choices. This has been the social gathering. This has been the party. So I'm saying all that to say that with the arts, back to my girlfriend's school. She runs her own artistic coaching school entitled Dare to Dream. We just ran 2 sessions. It reminded me of how important the arts is. One of her students was having issues with, let's say, coping, getting adjusted to the environment. She has personal issues at home, that, things happening in her life. Her teacher spoke to my girlfriend, thanking her for the acting work that she's doing with her. And I'm rounding all of this up to say, I've seen with my own two eyes, and I'm pretty sure the 5 gentlemen I'm speaking to right now have also seen, as well as the other people that are listening to this broadcast. I've seen my own two eyes, the arts, be able to speak to people in the ways that regular scholastic education cannot.
Let's go. Let's go.
There are certain, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any of those credentials. However, I am a human being that knows and feels and senses things. I can tell when the arts has been able to tap into certain vibrations and certain undertones and certain parts of people's subconscious that, you know, regular math and addition has not been able to. There are certain things that I didn't understand about myself when I was in school that now I'm getting a better understanding of. When we used to have a reading class, I don't know, you know, sometimes with different schools, they have different subject matter. So we had reading class back in my grade school. I used to have issues with reading, not reading meaning that I couldn't read. I could read, but my issue was retaining information and keeping my focus because I have a really short attention span. So there would be a lot of books that we had to read in school that I just wasn't getting. I just didn't get, nor did I care. Now, as an adult, fast forward into the present, I can understand that the reason that I didn't understand is because I couldn't retain the stuff because it was boring to me. So I can imagine with social media, you got these kids constantly scrolling through stuff. There's always a notification going bing, bing, bing. So you have all these things that are vying for our attention, vying for their attention, and now you're supposed to understand the generic stuff that's going to help get you through life. That's not as exciting. So I get it. So we have to. The onus is on all of us to find different ways to teach our kids to understand things that they need to and things that they feel they may not need to that may help them out in the future. And it's not easy, but it's definitely possible. And I'm saying that to say that with the arts, it's one of those avenues that's been able to do that a regular, you know, textbook and regular scholastic education has not been able to do.
SoundMinds of that. SoundMinds. JC, brother, if you could, I know you're gonna make a comment about the budget and all that too, and then I'm also gonna ask a question. We're gonna get real deep into some things. But after your comment, brother, let's talk, JC.
Got you, bet. Yeah, a lot of great things just brought up. Yeah, I think what is it? Do you prefer David or D Black? What do you prefer? Either or? Okay. So what D Black was saying was how do you quantify psychic change, right? Like how do you quantify change within the soul? How do you, there are no scales, no measurements, there's no way to quantify these things. And that's why the arts have struggled to gain funding, because you need to be able to put it into a scientific or mathematical, numerical, you know, format, right? So when I first met my mentor, Dr. Tyson, I would say that to him, right? And I was kind of like, I don't care about measuring the efficacy of the therapeutic potential of hip hop. Like I've lived it. I've seen it. I know it. I feel it in my bones. You know, you can't, none of these scales could quantify that. And one of the things he really drove home to me, impressed me and challenged me on is like, try to measure it in, there's different ways to measure it, right? To measure changes and to really try to make the case, right? Because I had to really argue about why am I trying to bring hip hop into schools like this or into therapy? Why am I trying to do that, right? So like the first year I worked with one kid, he threw a desk at a teacher twice. The year before I met him, right? The year I met him and start using these hip hop based approaches, he throws 0 desks at teachers. That's quantifiable evidence. That is data. You know what I'm saying? So we need to find a way to speak that language in something that is tangible, and there's ways to do it. And I would just swear it off because it's like, well, I can't do it perfectly, right? Like there's no soul data measurement that can show how much this is really going to change someone's life trajectory. But there are tangible things we can implement, and that will help secure the funding, right? And I hate to play the game, but it's almost like you got to play the game to beat the game. In terms of the funding, I guess quickly I'll just say I've experienced both sides of it. I've experienced, people on the one side trying to take advantage who will say, oh, there's this $25,000 grant. Let's apply for it. But only $5,000 is going to go to the kids. Oh, well, where's the other 20 going? Don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, I'm not doing it then. And almost losing my job over stuff like that. Just not willing to play ball, right? Especially as a new professional. But so I understand why like Joe was saying, some of these institutions are handing out large checks and they want to see some backing it up, right? Because there are people out here who will be like, 25K, let me put 20 in my pocket, 5 to do the work. It's like, no, I want to see where my money's going. If I'm giving you 25K, you better show me the receipts. So I get that also, right? So how do we provide those receipts in a way that's is tangible? You know what I mean? Can really measure that change. So yeah, and then I've also experienced the other side, right? With having an extremely progressive principal at the school I'm at now, Mott Haven Community High School, where I've been since I first launched this program 8 years ago. Her giving me a large chunk of, saying like, noticing kids were staying after school with me every day. Normally at 2:30, they're out of the building, but they're staying and we can't kick them out at 6 p.m. 2:30 is the end of the day. 6 p.m. they can't get these kids out. It's just like, what the hell is this dude doing? And I'm just back in the corner office with my laptop playing beats, and we're all ciphering together, And so the kids started advocating. I advocated. She was like, if I gave you some money, could you build a studio? Would you be able to start running a little program like that? I was like, absolutely. I've been making music my whole life. I could do that. Give me 3,000. Don't 3,000. I'll get you something. It won't be great, but she's like, all right, make it 6. All right, boom, make it 10. It kept going over the course of a month or two because the kids themselves were showing up like every day and putting, the money where their mouth was. Now they're coming to school every day. Now they're getting along better with their peers, with their teachers. They're not throwing desks at teachers anymore. They're not fighting over dumb shit in the hallway anymore. You know what I mean? Now they're excited and they want to come to school. Going back to what D Black was saying about making the content accessible and to speak to youth in a language that resonates with them, right? So yeah, I've been blessed with Helene Spadassini. That's the principal. I've been blessed to be able to work there and like that kind of progressive action, right? Like, cause it's easy for someone to say, yeah, I co-sign you. That sounds great. Cool. But for her to take that act and for the administration to really advance this and provide that opportunity. And I've never heard of that happening anywhere else, so totally blessed. And there's people out there who are really doing this.
My brother, I want to thank you for that, man, because you just alley-ooped me into the question I was about to hit y'all with. Let's keep it 1,000, right? So for the most part, we're talking about our youth. We're talking about, for the most part, the inner city. And this is not to say that it can't be taken out of the inner city. And we're also talking about hip hop and the word. We had A+ on couple of weeks ago, and I had brought up this thing about a letter of confession that was brought up in regards to how hip hop was taken to be used to destroy Black and brown communities with the cultural, the music, the art, and taking that so that it only, for the most part, is promoted and marketed in a very in a very financial way that would only benefit those that own these companies. So is the truth with a lot of the nonprofits and the organizations that we work for. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of friend on friend. Let me look out for them and not necessarily care about the kids that we're working with. There's a lot of, like you said, apply for grants for $25,000, and the person who they have do the job gets probably about $1,000 to that, and then they'll work it as if, yo, we're gonna give you a raise, $1,000 more, but you got $24,000 that now goes to somebody else's pockets. So I say all that to say the disgusting plague of politics. Politics destroys a lot of the great work and a lot of the frontline work that is done. Then you have those who are from our communities, but they don't know no better, and they're yes men, so they're put in certain positions to try to, in a sense, carry on an agenda that they don't even know that so they're being puppeteered into doing things that actually hurts our youth, because they're kind of like, so when you have advisors, right, who are the title is advisor. So you're supposed to advise the best way possible. But when you yourself don't know no better, how can you advise somebody who's probably 2 years younger than you, or probably has even more experience than you do based off of their own experiences? So I say that to say very long-winded introduction to this, but what do you say to the people who sit in positions in which they work with our young, but do it in a way in which there's no care or passion to the work that they're supposed to be doing, and in all senses of the word, are very detrimental to the fallback on how a lot of our youth do not become successful in what it is that they aim for in life because they're being advised the wrong way? And what do you say to the administrative and those who make the decisions that bring in this funding, but do not allocate that to the proper ways in which they could help our youth get better and become successful in life?
Is that to me? No, go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As cliche and corny as it sounds, being a teaching artist or being a teacher in that realm or on that lane is definitely a labor of love. And if that love isn't there, I can't even say we are all wasting our time. This is not about just pulling out textbooks, turning to certain chapters, understand the lesson, and as long as you know how to add and subtract, I've done my job, and I can be very, monotone and mundane, and blah 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 blah. You can't do that when it comes to the arts. Those vibrations are real, those frequencies are real, those emotions are real. That love has to be real, and that's going to be felt if you're there for a check. It's gonna be felt. It's gonna be felt, and it's gonna be seen through. One of the things that you have to know how to do as a teaching artist is that you have to know how to improv. You have to know how to ad lib, because things are gonna switch up. You're gonna go in there with an agenda. You're gonna go in there with the game plan. But I kid you not, 9 times out of 10, there's gonna be some day when you're gonna have to change up. You're gonna have to change up your game plan. Either something happened in the school, or something happened with you.
Yo, I'm sorry to cut you, bro.
Yeah.
My brother Ra's laughing because he's very prepared. Like, he's the studio person. I'm the all right, Suffice gonna do something, and we're gonna take something from that and make it marketable. And he's the prep. So when we was first going into schools, he was dying when you said that. I need the SoundMinds highlight this clip, because like he would be like, wait, but what do you do here and what do you do there? And I'm like,
right,
don't get me wrong, I'm a nerd on the paper. Like, I write the grants for the administrators to say we're doing this at this level and this,
right,
but they ain't in the classes. And somebody's gonna get thrown through a window, and somebody's gonna get hurt if I go in and do what I said in the way they want. So I write it that way. And I was telling Rob, when you in there, you'll see, and correct me if I'm wrong, brother, but like I told you, you perfect out there because you are an empath. And you could say, you know what, this kid, it's been numerous times where Rob said, you know what, since it's 2 of us here, I'll take this kid out to the side for a second. I'll talk to him. And I'm saying, see,
it was all
helping me more than I could
going, because you kept a certain energy for the rest of them, and when one didn't, want to stay in and stay in tune, with it was like, all right, well, come here, let me holler at you, let's talk about it. And
I try to use the analogy of, like, you have a plant, you have a bridge, you have a building, right? All of these things are rooted in something, but they have to have some sway room. They gotta have some sway room. If you have a plant that has no sway room, or a bridge without no sway room, or a building without no sway room, when those torrential winds come, that sucker crumbling. So if you come in here, okay, guys, this is the agenda. This is what we're doing today. We got the outline. Boom, 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 boom. And by this time, we have to do this. You go in there every day and you try to run that game plan.
Goes back to hierarchy.
Like, come on, man. Like that doesn't work. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. You go in there. I'm all with having a plan. I'm all with having a plan.
You know what happens? What I would say, it's like having that plan every time, and it's like I go in with the plan, and then after the class, I'm saying, It's crazy how that class just happened so great and it didn't go as planned whatsoever.
But you still gotta have hope. But see, that's the well, to me, that's the secret though, and that's one of the things that I love about acting, because it reminds me that you have to have this technique, but you still have to be malleable for whatever happens, and hopefully you get to that goal and that destination. You're not going to get to that destination with the same route that you put on paper, but hopefully you're going to get to that destination with just about as much love, joy, exuberance, and all that beautiful stuff that hopefully the plan was supposed to get you to. But if you walk in there with no plan and destination, well, now you're at the will of the doggone students, and you don't want that either. So you want to at least have a plan and a destination, and you walk in with some type of backing and also a malleability and a wiggle room to play with.
A question is coming to me for y'all, and this is, I hope this is, if it's too much of a pivot, just tell me. I don't mind. But I'm wondering how this applies to social justice on the streets. I've never seen, in the midst of a pandemic where it's social distancing, mind you, all these people out on the streets protesting and caring about Black lives, right? But one thing I'm noticing is that, and to your point, JC Phoenix, like the youth not needing to be perfect and stressing that like it's okay to have role models that aren't perfect is what has pushed this further than any movement before, in a sense, no disrespect to the past, but in a certain area where it's like, we don't need the guy in the 3-piece suit who goes to church every Sunday and has 3 degrees to be the person that gets beat by the cops, because the point is almost, it's almost it's respectability politics. We've been teaching people that if you do all these great things and you get hurt, then we're going to stand up for you. But if you're not perfect, if you're like 99% of our youth out here, right, this in these situations because of this society that legalized slavery, selling, rape, and murdering of people, and we still dealing with the aftermath. If you like 99% of us and something bad happens to you, we don't care about you, right? I'm getting a connection, and tell me if y'all get it too, with the education, what we're saying about not being perfect as educators, but being malleable. And there's an unspoken thing we're teaching kids, which is that no matter what you have, our goal is to have love, peace, unity at the end of the day. The goal is to get to our objective, whether it's 2 + 2 or whatever the academic objective. If you get to that a way that I didn't see, more power to you, right? Is that also being translated by this generation into social justice too? Where it's not like you have to look a certain way or have a certain religion, a certain respectability, but the goal is for all of us to be treated fairly and tried fairly, even if I am a criminal, right?
And that was D Black's point, so I'm gonna let you take that, bro. That was a great summary of it, and it's a solid point. But that not needing to be about the role model.
You could all speak to that though. I know you could all speak to it, especially you, JC.
Jay, you want to jump in first?
Nah, go ahead.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll try to draw an example. I forgot what documentary I was looking at, but it was saying something to the effect of with Rosa Parks, she was chosen as the person to sit in the front of the bus for the civil rights movement to get the push that it needed. There was another woman, I believe. There was another one or a handful of women and or people that sat in the front of the bus before her. However, their background, their backstory, if you will, was not emulating enough for the civil rights community to get behind them and say, okay, we're going to push and fight for this person. So Rosa Parks was picked, and she was handpicked for everyone to say, okay, this caliber of person was wronged, and we're going to back this person as a movement. So saying all that is to say that today's youth movement, social justice spirit is coming from a different angle. It's really, well, how was this person wronged? Like, I remember that was the divisiveness with Mike Brown. People were saying, oh, well, he wasn't the best, kid, why are we, sticking up for him, and yada, yada, yada. And the push and the rah really came from, no, he's a human being that was wrong, that should still have a chance to live, as opposed to all these other kids that are doing things that are just that are even more heinous. You know, when we go to the situation like with Dylan Roof, who was taken to, you know, Burger King to, you know, to have a meal after you just slaughtered people in a church. You know, these are the dichotomies of this country that are just so blatantly wrong, but are still like just kind of washed over as a, oh, well, you know, let people be people and people are going to be wrong and da 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 da. But today we're looking at it as what justice was taken away from this individual, and how can we go about, you know, either giving it back or righting this wrong. I think that that's where we're coming from these days.
Joe, JC, y'all want to build on that?
Go ahead, JC.
No, that's a solid point. Yeah, so I guess I'm still trying to figure out the way to formulate my answer. So
I feel like
so
you've had some trauma with this. You know, SoundMinds podcast ain't like any other. We get real, right? So first of all, I want to apologize if I may have touched on something that, because you work with this a lot. So if there's something where you feel like you might be bringing up something that is like might hurt someone's feelings or something like that, it's okay, and we get it. You do the actual work. It's not all about what you say on the podcast. But at the same time, like, I know you're qualified to answer this. And I know, like, from watching the work you did, you're a big proponent. Like, a perfect example was saying, I need to bring, if this kid wants to hear curses in the music because the message is more important, it's relating to this kid, then I fought for this kid to be able to do that. And I think sometimes that gets misconstrued as like, all I do is want to have curses in the music. And that's the problem with these hierarchies. They simplify everything we're saying. So if you need to make a nuanced point, this is the podcast for that. I just want to let you know we understand the complexity of it.
No, and I appreciate that, man, for real. And I definitely, I guess what I just wanted to reflect back to you what I heard, because I want to make sure I'm talking on topic. So you were saying, what's the parallel to the role models and not having to be perfect with the social justice movement? I just want to make sure I understand the topic before commenting.
Exactly. Like we've been talking about it in the schools with the educator. What's the parallel with how social justice is? Are we starting to stand up more for everyone? Regardless of their past, and say, you know what, we respect America because of the way we deal with our criminals and those who did commit a wrong act. Because at the end of the day, we know a white person from a certain neighborhood is never going to be yelled at, treated, or handled the way that some of our young brothers and sisters are, right? So when people come out and say, well, regardless of race, if you treat everyone equally, it's like, but that's not really happening. So instead of saying, I treat everyone equally, can we say those who we know are routinely being treated unequally, at least when they do something wrong, could they at least be, can we come to their defense and say, regardless of if they perfect or not, right? You don't know how they got in that situation. But outside of the schools, just out in the street, you know?
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, like kind of what you guys were just talking about, people are human, man. People fuck up. People make mistakes. We all got skeletons, man, you know? So yeah, I guess it boils down to a conversation of what's forgivable, right? And I think everybody might have their own metric of that. You know, for certain people, maybe, you know, certain dirt is dirt, right? But then you start crossing over into certain other territories and you're like, you know, child abuse and, you know, certain things. And you're like, yeah, I don't know. I don't, that's not easily forgivable. So I don't know if that's the vein you guys were going on, but in terms of social justice, like, you know, if you're talking about Mike
All
Brown.
right, I'll say one more thing on this, just because I would love to hear. I want to make you feel comfortable. I don't feel like you comfortable going in on this yet. So let me try one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know for a fact, like there was a girl recently on Jada's round table, right? And so my excuse for knowing this is because I have a wife. When I had kids, my excuse for watching Lion King cartoons was my kids. Now my excuse for watching round table and stuff is I have a wife, right? So my wife's watching the show, and it was the daughter of the people that went to jail for a little while because they paid colleges to get their kid. They took pictures of their kids on crew teams and grade classes they never did, sports they never played.
Yeah.
And she was on there apologizing and saying, I learned my lesson and so forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gamma said something crazy. Jada's mom, she said, I don't have the time and I'm exhausted to give you like applause to you for coming on the show, but even you being here is white privilege, right? So many, no black and brown people who've committed a crime or gotten close. There's kids that get in trouble just for being on a predominantly white campus, and the security doesn't think they go to the school, right? And now they get in trouble, they get arrested, whatever like that. So she said, I don't have the time for that. Being that we know there's so many people who are privileged that are treated with a benefit of the doubt anyway. This isn't a new thing for that class of people, right? You get what I'm saying?
100%.
For the rest of us, it's an obscene. This is what O.J. Simpson was about. This is what so many cases were about. Just saying if we got a fair trial. It wasn't even if the person was guilty or not. It was like, are we going to get a fair trial? Do you feel like that's realistically starting to happen now? Like we're starting to see in education more people saying you can have different philosophies of pedagogies of educators and different methods and see if they get through this kid in a different way. Do you think that black people are starting to have a chance to be given a benefit of a doubt and a fair trial like rich white people have for centuries? Or is it really just the education system and the social justice, the court system is doomed?
Dude, that's such a great question, and I don't even know if I'm qualified to speak on that. But I could say from what I've seen, right, like as a white individual from an outsider's perspective, with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I was saying this when George Floyd was murdered, and the protests were popping off, right? It was primarily peaceful. I was out there on the street, and then there were a couple little rioting, looting here and there, right? But then that's all you see on the media, right? You just see rioting, looting, because it's sensational. It's all about sensationalizing. From my perspective, right? I was surprised there wasn't more rioting. I was surprised that these cities didn't burn, right? Because you're talking about intergenerational trauma. You're talking about individuals from communities that have systematically been oppressed, mistreated. I can't tell you a single kid I've worked with who hasn't been held up against a wall, run down on by the police for absolutely nothing, right? I would not have that same experience. So the fact that the cities didn't burn and it wasn't total chaos, I think that speaks so much to the power of the Black community to unify, right? And come together and create a form of social action through protest, to come together and peacefully, like there was a lot of anger there, man, and rightfully fucking so. You know what I mean? If I was routinely seeing people I cared about getting thrown down, knee to the neck, and not just physically from the police, but we're talking about systematically, structurally, whether it's educational systems, psychological systems, medicine. I could go down a whole rabbit hole with that, right? But the idea that these communities came together and didn't give into that trauma response, right? Because when you're traumatized, right, and you're triggered, that's a triggering event. You're watching this on TV, it's flooding your face, right? That's a triggering event. What happens when you trigger, even just neurologically speaking, right? From a neurobiological standpoint, your neocortex, your cognitive, higher order thinking skills shuts down. It's fight or flight, right? You're automatic, like kill or be killed, right? You see a lion coming at you, you don't have the time to say, should I go run up a tree or should I maybe go left or go right? You're out, So the fact that even amidst that, not everybody just had a huge traumatic response. I think it just speaks to the power within these communities to bolster themselves, and to continue that fight, right? I think a reckoning is coming. I think throughout our history as a country, but just even as a species, tremendous strides have been made. But I don't think anyone could tell you like, oh, it's fair now, or we're getting closer. You know what I'm saying? Or I don't know what the end is. I think the work is being done and the communities are striving as they have before and will continue to, long before us and long after us. So
That's
yeah.
real. Thank you, brother. And I
SoundMinds,
apologize for pressing you, but I knew
No,
you had more to say
no.
about
Listen,
it.
bro,
And
I'm an
there it
open
is.
book. I didn't know what you were getting at first, so I was hesitant to answer because I was like, I don't want to say something off topic. But if I'm an open book, man. I definitely don't make me feel uncomfortable at all. I appreciate it.
Joseph Vasquez. I mean, I think this is also a great question for you to chime into, because I mean, your piece that we actually heard earlier spoke a lot about this.
Mhm.
Can you touch on?
Yeah, well, I mean, what I wanted to say is, first, I don't think there's been because when you're saying if people of color are getting a better chance or being looked at, that I think that's from the systemic side. I don't think there's been improvement on the systemic side, because with this whole thing about being portrayed as this spotless, blameless human being or whatever, whether it's someone who was murdered or is a leader, you know the world is always trying to delegitimize, especially under this system. They're always try to find something to delegitimize leaders of color and these victims of police brutality and racism. So no matter what, it's like when there's somebody who's killed by police, it's like they go, someone's gonna come up with something from that person's past and like, well, they stole candy one time when they were like 4 years old. Like there's always something that they try to bring up to delegitimize that person and justify why that person was murdered. So that's on that sense. I think social media has helped, with keeping everything, putting everything out there, right? When I was younger, we didn't have social media. In my community, Amadou Diallo was killed, right? And I remember going to Connecticut, talking to young students in Connecticut, and they had no idea who Amadou Diallo was. We were like, what? Are you kidding? Connecticut. We were in the Bronx, from Bronx to Connecticut, one state over, and they didn't know who Amadou Diallo was. So social media has played a big part in keeping that exposure out there. I think what the improvement has been is this generation has been really resilient in keeping it, keeping the movement going forward and not dying out as we've seen sometimes in the past. I mean, I've been blessed to see, I went when George Floyd was murdered here in Kissimmee, Florida. I went to one of the protests, and it was actually put on by the law enforcement. They put it together, and they're like, "We're gonna march with you." So I was blown away by that. I'm like, "Wow, I've never seen nothing like that." But it died really quickly, though. After that, you know what I mean. But what's amazing though is that these younger people have just really pushing this movement forward and have not allowed it to die down. And I think that's so amazing. And I think a lot of it is because of our generation has really been, especially us who work with young people, is empowering these young people, bringing it back to this whole discussion, right? The word, their voice, finding your voice. No matter how young you are, you have a voice to speak up. You have a duty to speak up and to speak for your people, speak for your community, and speak for yourself and be empowered by that. Because, for instance, with myself, when I was young, before I got into, I changed my life when I was running the streets and acting a fool. There was no one who thought, or I didn't think much of myself I didn't see any potential of a leader on myself. But when I was able to discover a voice and like I had something to say and I could have an impact, now I got, I felt empowered, and now I could do stuff. Now I could, go to protests and get involved in activism and get involved in community and get involved in giving back. And now, so many years later, still doing the work of investing in these young people. And that's what's empowering. I got to give it up to us, as working with young people, that we have been, those voices and those lights to empower these young people, to just, to want to make a difference, to stand up, right? George and I, light skinned.
You would say more in the background too.
Say it again.
I said you would say more in the background too.
Yeah.
Like, like just empowering the youth. Our type of work is not put on Main Street. It's not put on the forefront. This is something, like we said, we're designing our own programs and, working with nonprofits and things of that nature. That's all in the background of doing it. And like you said,
it's foundational though, because we in the front lines working the roots, building those roots up. And like I was having conversations with light skin. We had a conversation with some of our former students, and they were telling us about how they got involved. They're getting involved in the community. They're going to protest. They're doing, and that that's amazing. That we're actually able to see some of the fruit of our labor, and it's just amazing.
You should have went.
Well, what's crazy? I'm glad you said.
Good fucking answer.
It speaks to, and the funny thing is, right, and this is for the most part, man, D Black, Joe Vasquez, JC Hall, Kaheem, Rashawn, you know what I mean? All of us, we have, who we are as people, man. It speaks to the integrity and the morale that we give off to those that we work with. You know what I'm saying? Because I think kind of what, piggybacking off of what Joe was saying, leadership, man. Like when you're teaching word, you know what I'm saying? Like even when me and JC, when I was introduced to my brother, I was doing a hip hop thing after school. And, of course you're going to have the young kid who feels like, yo, I don't want to hear about how to put a bar together, man. Yo, I just want to speak about my gun. So when I'm talking, I'll give you a bar. I was high on lean, got my gun, shot at dumb. You know what I'm saying? And then taking that and saying, well, let's put your bar in perspective and let's talk about life and how you want more for your son. So you have a child. Let's maybe change that. You was high on lean, grab the gun.
And maybe that with a straight face, knowing that was that was like an actual quote that we all heard there.
Probably was, but then it's just
okay. Let's say
right. You gotta teach better, and I think that's where the responsibility comes down. Where you say, "Yo, let's take your ball. You want to mention a gun? All right, you have a son. Let's talk about the fact. Thought about grabbing my gun, but then thought about my son. Now I'm thinking about who he becomes. You know what I mean? And just taking balls and putting them together, where you start to formulate a different thought pattern in the brain cells. Because truth is, you are what you saturate yourself with. You are what you become based off of what you saturate yourself with. So if you're constantly around negativity and speaking about, yo, I'm always high or I'm always drunk, or like D Black said in his piece, I apologize, how we take our women and pretty much sell them off as pimps. And that's okay. Like our young ladies, our young queens are growing up saying, well, nah, it's okay for me to be a trap queen, or it's okay for me to be a young chick that gets sold off, because everybody in hip hop is talking about that now, when that's not really hip hop. Again, going back to the question I asked, when they took hip hop, the culture, the art form, and said, yo, let's sell off of this by destroying a culture of people, that's where all that kind of came about. So it is our responsibility to say, yo, I understand what you're listening to is the new vibe, it's the new trend. That's dope, man. But let's try to think on a different brain scale. You know what I mean? Like there was a case in point, there was a young teen that me and JC was working with, and Joe knows him as well. This young kid was so gifted, you know what I mean? And shout out to Brian, man. He just had I know he'd be cool with me mentioning his name. Just had a baby of his own, young man who, for the most part, was so talented and gifted. And a lot of times, like when I would hear his rhymes, I'm like, yo, that's dope. One of his idols was Eminem, and I was like, yo, that's dope. You kind of sound like him. But let's take what you're doing and create your own lane. Let's take what you're doing and give you different context. So give you something else to think about and write about. So when you're writing, Now you're not constantly hitting the same wall. And it's been so many times, and not that he was doing this, but so many times we can hear our young youth talk about putting bullets in their own pigs. You know what I'm saying? But after a while, your ears need to hear something different where it's like, yo, let's change this and try to make it positive. Let's change this and now take this and make it more complex. Your rhyme schemes more complex. The lyrics that you're putting down, your bars, let's take that and give that more superhuman power than just really being regular. You know what I mean? And that's where the 6 individuals you see here, the 6 men that you see here, that's where it starts with. So if, with all that being said, what do you feel about that responsibility for anybody working with the youth or doing hip hop? And like D-Rob, you know, Dave Rob said with his piece of I Apologize, we got to think about them things, man. We got to sit there and say, yo, are we really hurting our people by continuing the same cycle? The cyclical movement that continues to destroy us will never get better if we keep on destroying us. So if you can, brothers, can y'all talk about that responsibility?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on, I think there's a couple of things that we got to do when we're approaching these young people when they're caught in that cycle, right? One is exposing that cycle to them, you know, taking that veil from their eyes, the scale from their eyes, and letting them see, like, look, you're going in this cycle that's kind of like generational. It's like almost like a generational curse that you're following, and you got to break that. You know what I mean? So letting them see that. Another thing is it's about values too, right? So you speak on what you value, the things that you value in life. A lot of, you know, we've said here, right? Like the community of people, young people that we work with, you know, they're coming from inner cities, coming from whether it's broken homes, you know, poverty, you know, domestic violence in the homes or whatever, all kinds of craziness, gang violence. It's all around them, and then it's getting glamorized in hip hop and these songs, and they're like, oh, this is, you know, oh, you know what I mean? So like kind of like showing them that, revealing them to, you know, the problem there, but then also showing them helping them to find their purpose in life, and again their voice, so that they can be empowered and break out of that cycle and break out of that generational curse, and move forward, and you know, in a positive way. And you'll see it change in their mind frame. You'll see it change in their speech, right? Because I remember when I used to work in this program down here, right? I used to always, you know, share quotes. And there was a quote that I share with them. I think it's Zig Ziglar. He says, your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude, right? And how that's broken down is aptitude is skills. It's not about your skills, it's about your attitude. But where does your attitude come from? It comes from your beliefs, comes from your values, and you know how you perceive things, your worldview on life. So if your worldview on life is just negativity, if your attitude on life is just negativity, or this is all I'm going to be, or I'm not going to be nothing, then your altitude, how high you go, is not going to be very high. But now if I'm able to change them and able to help this young man see the leader in him and the potential in himself, now his attitude is going to start changing. Now his mindset is going to start changing. His worldview is going to start changing. And then from there, now his speech is going to change. Now his actions are going to change. And now he's going to be doing more positive things. Now his rhymes may start being a lot more positive, talking about his life and his goals and his kids or whatever, or, you know, and his future.
SoundMinds.
There's not much more that I can say after what Joe just said. But what I will do is try to wrap it up with one group, the Locks. So the Locks, as we all know, was on Bad Boy. They weren't happy there. Now that didn't mean that they couldn't make music and they couldn't make money. They were making money. I mean, from my understanding, did they go gold? I'm trying to backtrack. I think they went gold on Bad Boy, but they weren't happy there. So then they get on with Rough Rider, and they've been, fast forward into the present. They're still making music, still streets, still gutter, still the way they want to do it. They got the underground, killing the streams. They're doing their own thing. Now, I'm pretty sure if they rode the wave on Bad Boy, they would have still made their money. They would have, they would have been shiny suited up, but they would have still made their money. So here you have a group that on their own integrity, on their own measure, on their own standards of what success was to them, they decided to go down the road that they wanted to go to, so they could not only make money, but make money and be happy on their own terms. Those are the type of things that has to be taught to our youth, because the money's going to come, you know, but to get into the mindset of, oh, I need to do this in order to make the money, or I have to do this in order to make a certain type of money. It's like they say, man, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So as long as you understand that you're here for the marathon and you're not here to just get that quick high and then fizzle afterwards, then you're going to end up getting what you just deserve. You know, it's just like when Styles P threw the chair at Diddy. You know what I'm saying? He did that because he had a reason. He was frustrated. He was mad. He was furious, regardless of what money was made. So they said, look, we have to leave. We got to get out of this contract. We have to do our own thing because we're not happy, regardless of the money that we did make. So if they understood, if our youth, bring it back to the youth, if our youth understand the power that they do have, the power that they can attain and maintain on their own standards. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. One of the things that we have to do is create more avenues for them to be able to create on their own terms. Now, those terms may not be something that we may like or agree with, because I'm really hip hop illiterate when it comes to a lot of the music that's out now. I didn't even know that there was such a thing called drill music. I didn't even know what the hell drill was. I think maybe like a month ago, someone was like, yo, so there's this whole, you know, I know trap. I mean, trap, you know, that it took me long enough just to get that. And I'm thinking trap is the latest thing. It's like, nah, man, drill music. It's like this whole, they got the whole lingo. It's a lingo within, it's like a subculture within the subculture of the subculture. And, you know, they got the gangs are doing their own thing and they talking about this. And, you know, it's just, I felt like an old man listening to maybe like 3 or 4 songs. I'm like, what did he say? I'm trying to catch up. And this is the music that I grew up on. So I can imagine, you know, someone who's even more foreign to the music, but yet the thing that kills me is that these people who are foreign to the music are the puppet masters of the music, which says something. We have to create more avenues for our youth or for, you know, people who really love the culture, who want to make money off the culture, to be able to do so without having to tap dance, because these people who are not even associated know that they even care about the individual. Forget about the culture. They don't even care about the individual. They just know that they can make money you know, off of us. So they have their template, they have their plan and their destination, and they're using their plan and their destination, and they put us on the assembly line as the product for their plan and destination. But if we don't have enough avenues for other artists to come behind us and to be the masterpiece, as opposed to just, you know, someone who's the president of the company and not the owner of the damn company, well, then all I can do is fall back and say, well, let so-and-so live and do all the negativity that he or she wants to, because that's how they're making their money. It's so sad that we're in a generation now that doesn't know anything about a sister soldier, but every other female rapper is the stripper / model / rapper, and don't get me wrong, you know, making money how you make your money, but to not have that same variety as when we were coming up, there's no reason why there should not be, you know, a Queen Latifah, a Sister Soldier, and a Little Kim, and a Foxy. All of them should be out there, but you shouldn't have 1,000 of them that all look the same and sound the same. You know, bars is bars, but I'm pretty sure.
One thing I'm realizing about this episode is that hierarchy and supremacy has messed our world up, because even when you go to fight against the problem, who do you end up usually hitting? There's a scene, if y'all didn't see Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, shout out to, you know, Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, his last role, you know, shout out to Denzel for putting him in. But if y'all haven't seen that, I definitely would co-sign you seeing that. But I'll just say his character is so complex in that, because he does some things that are harmful to other Black people, while it's clear that he's very aware that the white supremacists that mishandled his parents and harmed his mother brutally, he's very clear that those people were at fault, right? But the way that this stuff works on us, that a lot of privileged people don't understand is the way it works is the way we attack and kill and brutalize each other, right? So when people go, well, I'm not a slave master, you're not dealing with the trauma of what I'm doing to myself as an oppressed person. And you are responsible in this society, if you're privileged by the work that we do, you are responsible for dealing with that. So I want to thank all of y'all brothers for making me realize and reaffirm that the hierarchy is the issue, right? Because no matter who we blame, we still end up hurting each other. And no matter what the problem is, we always end up blaming a person. And it's not a person, it's the systems of how, it don't need to be no beef between Foxy Brown and Little Kim and Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, if they all could say, I'm a different person with a different perspective and I'm valid too, and I have a right to earn too. Why is this so hard? 2021, Jupiter conjunction, whatever's going on, please, can we be more human this year? And this is my last comment, so I just want to leave my comments on that note. I'm sorry, bro. Thank y'all for helping me realign with the breaking down the hierarchies and letting people be individuals.
Can I say one thing on that quick? Oh, my bad, bro. Go ahead.
No, I was going to jump in and tail end that, it's interesting how that spirit and that soul of what hip hop gave to us was kind of shape shifted, like the whole Barbie thing, like the whole love of money thing. When you see hip hop and what it does to the soul of the individual, and it gave us the ability to be kings, to be pharaohs, to be gods in a country, in a structure, in a system that was set up to oppress us and make sure we never reach that level. And the powers that be, they knew this. They said, yo, these dudes, because remember, hip hop was supposed to fade. Hip hop was not supposed to live this long. When I came up, hip hop was a let's say a toddler. So if hip hop was a baby in like the early 70s, by the time I heard the first hip hop song and thought, oh, that's dope, hip hop was probably like a good old, not even a tween, maybe like an infant. It's like talking and crawling. By the time it hit the 90s, oh shoot, hip hop was a teenager. It got swag. It's making money. It's making payments. It's taking people out the hood. So remember, you have this really young subculture that the powers that be are watching grow up, and they see that the culture itself is young. So it still doesn't know, what to do and how to do it. It just knows that it's great with doing it. So once you have this really young, impressionable mind that's so dope and so talented, you can still be shape shifted into doing the wrong thing. And that's what happened. Hip hop being a very young, but yet still impressionable thing all across the world ended up getting shifted into just being this money making thing that was way more spiritual when it started off. But see, we weren't thinking about money then. When you see the jams in the park, wasn't nobody trying to make no money like that. Kool Herc wasn't thinking about being a millionaire off of hip hop. You was just like, yo, this is a really dope thing. It's a really dope culture, and we're gonna blow the doors off the hinges in regards to inspiring people and influencing people in a certain way. Yep. But once the machine sees what can be done, they have dollar signs with everything. If the powers that be see this 6-man virtual conference, they're gonna sit back and say, how do we make money off of this? How do we get sponsors to kick in some more money to turn this into such and such? Because that's how they're wired. So to an extent, they're to blame to an extent. But then you have us who's kind of young in mind and not seeing the bigger picture of how far this could have gone and the direction that it should have gone. We have our blame, there too. Because there's not too many Master P's in the game. There's but maybe a handful of dudes who are like really running it in regards to making the music and distributing. Like there's not too many people doing that. We know about making music and being the CEO and the president of something, but we really not running it, running it. So, you know, we have to put on our thinking caps in regards to seeing everything from the assembly line to the product, to how the product gets sold, to the shares of that product and lawyers. And we have to see the whole picture.
Can I say something to that? Because I kind of want to go off of what he said about, right, the machine. So like the machine, you know, that just thinks about the money, right, with hip hop, and it kind of like manipulates things into something. But I think what the beauty of hip hop though is that the purity and beauty always comes out, you know, after a while. Like for instance, you know, when I was younger, we had the East Coast West Coast wars, right? It got out of hand. It was crazy. It was dark. You know, we lost rappers, right? But then you had the movement after that, after like Pac and Biggie died, then you had Raucous Records come out, Common, you know, like, you know, artists like Lauryn Hill, like the purity of hip hop came back, you know. So I feel like it always comes back and it always pushes through regardless, you know, because then it'll, you know, and the machine will try to come again. And then you have people like J. Cole, Kendrick come out, or, you know, the record labels are, you know, all this controlling and all this stuff or whatever. But then you have the independent artists, kind of like what D Black was talking about, right? No limits and stuff. But now it's like, now dudes are trying to own their masses now. That wasn't even thought of before. Now it's like, we don't even need record labels now, right? So, so it's like, I feel like, you know, what I'm encouraged about is like the beauty and purity of hip hop always fights through.
Of where it's going, especially about where it's going.
100%. And I think what you guys are touching on, right, is this, it's almost like a macro argument in terms of you're weighing personal individual responsibility versus social responsibility, right? To what extent are we holding individuals responsible? Because to a certain extent, they're shaped by the systems and the environments in which they are born, but we are also not puppets or complete, like we have no freedom of will, right? So there's kind of that give and take. And I think with hip hop's never going to die because it's the human spirit, right? I think it represents that resilience and that expressive. It's just another tradition of the human species utilizing the arts, and, you know, from like cave paintings to going on pilgrimages and long rhythmic walks and dances, and like we've been doing this as a species since we all, you know what I mean, from whatever an amoeba. So it's never going to die because I think it embodies that human spirit, right? But I think we have to realize what culture it was born within. It was born within American capitalism. What capitalism, right, does, it's a lot about monetizing and commodifying, right? How do I take this and what sells, right? And we can blame them and say that's their fault, but at the end of the day, yo, we're humans. We're creatures of the flesh. You want to talk about dirt? You know what I mean? Like, yo, sex sells. You want to see that action movie. You want to see shit blow up. You want to see people running around shooting guns. Like, at the end of the day, that shit's, you know what I mean? Like, whatever gets the blood rushing, that's a very human thing that I think we're all attracted to a certain extent. So there's a reason they keep doing it. It's because it sells. You know what I'm saying? And that's what makes money. And I think that's not necessarily so much. You could say there is a manipulative societal aspect, right, where they're kind of trying to play puppet strings, but there's definitely an individual component too, where it's like we're all not like saints either. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're all not, you know, just getting tainted and totally manipulated. Like, maybe we want to go watch that video with women shaking their asses, or we want to go see that car with, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, you can't deny that animalistic element within you. And I think that's a lot about the shadow work, right? Getting in touch with your shadow and understanding, like, you know, there's dark sides to humans, right? Which is, I think, partially what feeds the propelling of this sort of messaging. There's very likely, you know, there's systemic components to it, right? But at the end of the day, you know, there's individual components too. So yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion, but just trying to see it from both angles. And it's very difficult, right? Because where does one end and one begin? And they're so enmeshed, right? Because the individual is so embedded.
Well, this ain't gonna end tonight, because Rod, like, you know, we gotta have these brothers back, because they done opened up a few chapters.
About. I mean, you know what the dope thing is? I think for the most part, it's one of those powerful conversations, and that's why the thought of having this was so important to what we do, who we are. I think the fact that you brothers are doing what you do, have been doing what you've been doing, not only artistically, but as well as giving back to the generation that follows you and those after that, and so on and so forth. We are going to wrap it up because we are hitting the 2-hour mark, but at the same time, I think it's so powerful, man, so strength driven, just to have you brothers on here and kind of have that like-minded, same backbone, same integrity, same morale, to understand that the work that you do and those you do it with is only the seed that you're planting, so that they can continue the same work with those that follow after them. You know what I mean? So I just want to salute y'all, man, to the highest regard, man. I salute y'all so heavily, just based off of the fact that,
For real.
like it's been said so many times already. You know, D Black said it, Joe said it, JC said it, we'll say it. What we do is based off of love, and the money signs were never a reason as to what drives us. But at the same time, we stay as passionate as we do, just based off of the fact that we understand how imperative it is for us to be who we are, so that those who we give those gems to can be as strong to the next generations that follow. You know what I mean? So thank you, brothers, for being who you are, man. Yeah, we definitely do need a part 2 to this, man. We definitely need to come back.
You, bro. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many layered, you know, the onion, right? Shrek, onion. You know what I mean? And there's so many layers to what we're talking about and how important it is for all of us, man. And we're so instrumental to what we do and those who we do it with. And I think that we need to keep on doing what we're doing. So shout out to all you brothers, man. Double salute to y'all. I thank y'all so much for everything that y'all doing, man. And, you know, closing statements. I know for the most part, JC, you have that the next documentary coming out. Joe, my brother, I know that the poetry is still the sword is moving. Please speak on that. Any projects that you have going on. D Black, please tell the people where they can find you on all the multiple shows. I know you was on the FBI. You was being interrogated. You know, they were sitting there and asking you all types of questions and got you nervous. But my brother, man, when I see you on them roles, man, that's a blessing for all of us, I feel, man. Everything that y'all do, man, I feel like whenever y'all win, it's a victory for all of us, because y'all showing it can be done. So please, if y'all can, 3 brothers, please speak about what the next things y'all have going, and let's keep it moving, man.
Rod too. Let me not forget Rod, because I made a closing statement. Like, got a statement. Rod, we definitely need to hear from you too, because you just an artist and educator. One thing about our hosts and guests, we all here together. So I want to recognize my brother Rod. You know, definitely want to hear your closing statement as well, King.
Yeah, I'll go after our guests go. So JC.
All right, bet. Feel free to check out Mod Haven. I would encourage you to check that out. Short documentary by Kyle Morrison. Meet some of the incredible youth that I get to work with and watch these processes unfold. Check out hiphoptherapy.com. It's a website I created to honor the legacy of my late mentor, Dr. Edgar Tyson, the originator and pioneer of this work. My mentor, the dude who's, the reason behind what I'm doing. And yeah, check out Haven in the Booth. That was a trailer in the beginning of a short doc in the works that will hopefully be coming out in the spring. And the young man in there just dropped an album, actually. His name is M Flizz, M_FLIZZ. Please check out his new album, Fire, all streaming platforms. And feel free to get in touch anytime. I appreciate y'all.
Awesome. Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at jvasquez_poetry. I try to post, things every now and then. Working on a podcast, trying to bring it back, called The Portrait of Us. Had George on it a few times, man, doing, amazing things. Do some spoken word on there, have some artists, interview them, talk to former students of mine and young people and things like that, all about building.
Hey everybody, it was a great time building with you brothers, man. For everybody that's out there, please do reach out to me. I'm on Instagram all day, every day at DBlackBX. Once again, that's DBlackBX. For those of you who are interested only in acting stuff, you can also reach me at I am D Roberts. I as an igloo, A as an apple, M as in mom, Roberts as in Julia Roberts at Instagram. And you can also, subscribe to a brother. I'm always posting things on my YouTube channel at DBLK504. Works up and coming. I'm gonna keep that to myself.
I'm sorry, you gotta say that again. Everything was going smooth until you said I got the acronym numerical. Okay, DBLK 504. That's right. DBLK. So no vowels.
Right.
No vowels, and then 504. All right, I just want to slow that down for the people.
Yeah, it's all good. In regards to upcoming works, I'd rather y'all just tune in. Y'all gonna be seeing me soon. I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna bubble up on y'all.
Let's go. So I appreciate you brothers for coming on. This was definitely a powerful interview for me, for me to have an overall view of, that teaching and artist space that's just out here. You know what I mean? Like I want to thank y'all for showing the value in that, the artist and teaching space. You showed the value of that. And I think that the seeds that's being planted, by us and through the years from y'all years, our years of planting these seeds, that will be coming at the forefront of really being, mainstream, as other things die down, because everything has a cycle. You know what I mean? And I feel like, the seeds that we are planting, the shift that is happening, I'm even seeing, like you said, the younger youth doing music, hip hop music is changing already. There's becoming a lot more conscious, a lot more empathetic, a lot more soulful. You know what I mean? So it's already beginning to happen with younger youth in their 1918s. That's tapping in now. That's going to have the 15, 14, 13, 12 listening, and then that's who we're working with right now. And that's just something that I see a bright future with hip hop. And I see, what's happening behind the scenes around the world and around the country with hip hop from speaking with you brothers. And this is also why we need our own, artist / teaching economy. You know what I mean? They need to put something. We need something in place in all states and all cities, because we need to be paid like we weigh. You know what I mean? And I think we also, definitely show the value, and we definitely gonna see that coming soon too. So I appreciate you brothers once again.
Dope. And for the most part, administrators, if you ever get to listen to this, those who make the decisions, understand that we in no way are trying to draw an arm's distance to what it is that we do, because we love what we do. We're trying to get in so that we can help our youth. And, with that being said, man, don't shy us away from the rooms that you're making these decisions in. You know what I'm saying? Understand that we are here, powerful voice, all one and united. You know what I mean? We all have the same like minds. So no matter what state or city, you see what's happening and you see the impact that we make. Don't think about the dollar signs behind what you're doing with the success stories that you're creating with these young people. Understand that we are there. We're creating those success stories as well.
And with that being said, we will see you next week on the final episode.
Season finale. On the count of three, let's all do it. 1, 2, 3. SoundMinds.
No.
Peace.